In the center of the planet, Uranus stood a massive arena made of dark stone and glowing metal. The sky above was a deep violet, and the sun cast a dull red light over the cheering crowd. Creatures from many different worlds filled the seats, all waiting for the next fight. This was a place where the strong ruled, and the weak were nothing but entertainment. The Valkyrie race ruled Reneth. They were tall, with silver skin and sharp eyes. Their warriors were feared across the stars. One of their best was Kalira. She stood with pride in the arena, her armor shining in the light. She looked at the human slave who had just been brought in. The human was tall, but not large. He had short brown hair and calm eyes. His name was Jake. He stood still, looking around the arena without fear. The guards pushed him forward, but he did not stumble. He did not speak. He did not look down. Kalira walked up to him with a smirk. "So this is the great human they told me about?" she said loudly so the crowd could hear. "He doesn't look like much," the crowd laughed. Some of them threw bits of metal or food at Jake. He did not flinch. He kept his eyes on Kalira. She circled him slowly. "You don't speak? Or maybe you're too scared. That's fine. We'll see what you're made of." Jake finally spoke. His voice was calm. "I speak when there's something worth saying." The crowd went quiet for a moment. Kalira raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," she said. "Maybe you do have a little fire. Let's test it." Two guards stepped forward with a set of heavy, energy-forged chains. They glowed blue and hummed with power. These chains were used to hold creatures far stronger than any human. Kalira herself had trained many warriors using them. She grabbed the chains and wrapped them around Jake's arms and chest. "Try to break these," she said. "Let's see how strong you are." Jake looked at the chains, then back at her. He didn't respond. Instead, he closed his eyes. The crowd watched in silence. He didn't pull with all his strength. Instead, he moved slowly, testing the links, feeling the hum of energy. He shifted his weight, twisted his body, and suddenly, there was a loud snap. One of the links cracked. Then another. Kalira stepped back in shock. The guards rushed forward, unsure of what to do. Jake gave a final pull, and the chains fell to the ground. The arena went silent. Then gasps and shouts filled the air. Never before had a human broken those chains, not even with help. Kalira stared at Jake, her smile gone. "How did you do that?" she asked. Jake looked at her, breathing slow and steady. "You thought I would fight with brute strength? That's your way?" "I used focus. I looked for the weak point." Kalira didn't know what to say. She had trained for years, believed in power and control. This human had just shown her something different, something she didn't understand. The crowd was still shouting, but their tone had changed. It was no longer just laughter and mockery. It was curiosity now. Even fear. Jake looked around the arena, then back at Kalira. "Is the test over?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, for now." As he was led away by the guards, Kalira stood alone in the center of the arena. Her heart was beating fast, not from anger. From something she hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt ** the next morning. The sky over Uranus was heavy with clouds. Rain fell in thin sheets, washing the streets clean. But inside the training compound, no one paid attention to the weather. All eyes were on the human named Jake. Kalira stood near the training floor, arms crossed. She had called for a private test. Only a few high-ranking officers and guards were present. The arena was empty, but the air was full of tension. Jake entered, calm as before. His hands were free, but guards followed close behind. He looked at Kalira, then at the large, open space. Weapons lined the walls, swords, staffs, energy spears. None of them were given to him. "You want to test me again?" Jake asked. Kalira stepped forward. "Not like yesterday. It's time we fight. No chains, no rules. You against me." Jake didn't react. "Will this be to the death?" She paused. "No, only until one of us yields." Jake nodded once. "Fine." The guard stepped back. The officers leaned in, watching closely. Kalira walked to the middle of the floor. Jake followed, stopping a few feet away. They stood still for a long moment. Then she moved. Kalira was fast. Her strikes were clean and sharp, trained from years of battle. She aimed for his side, then his shoulder. Jake dodged the first hit, blocked the second with his arm, and stepped back. He didn't counter right away. She pressed forward using speed and power. Jake stayed calm, always just one step ahead. He blocked, ducked, and twisted around her. Blows. When he moved, it was smooth and careful, like he was reading her every step. Finally, he struck. A single punch to her stomach made her stumble back. It wasn't a wild hit, but it was well placed. Keela recovered fast and attacked again. Now with more force, they traded blows for minutes. Neither spoke. Kalira was stronger, but Jake was smarter in his movements. He didn't waste energy. He used the space well. Every time she thought she had him cornered, he escaped. Eventually, Kalira's breath grew heavy. Her arms slowed. Just a little. Jake saw it and moved in. He grabbed her arm, turned his body, and brought her to the ground with one smooth motion. He didn't hit her. He just held her in place. Kalira looked up, angry at first, but then she saw his face. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't proud. He was calm. "Yield," he said. She took a deep breath. "I yield." He let go and stood. Kalira sat up slowly, her pride bruised. She had not lost a fight in years. And now, a human had beaten her. The officers whispered among themselves. Some of them looked nervous. Kalira stood and faced Jake. "You're different from the others?" Jake gave a small nod. "We were never weak. You just never looked closely." She walked to the side of the floor and picked up 2 water flasks. She handed one to him. He accepted it without a word. They sat in silence for a few moments. The rain outside grew heavier. "You didn't kill me when you had the chance," she said. Jake looked at her. "It wasn't the goal." She tilted her head. "Then what is?" He didn't answer right away. "To survive. To find freedom. Maybe more." Kalira looked away. "Freedom is not given here." "Then I'll take it," Jake said simply. She turned back to him. "You'll need more than strength for that. I know," he said. "That's why I started with you." Kalira didn't know what he meant by that. But something in her chest shifted. For the first time, she wondered if maybe everything she'd been taught about humans was wrong. That night, she lay awake in her chamber, thinking about the fight, thinking about his eyes. They were not filled with hate or fear. The training grounds were quiet the next day. Most of the guards kept their distance from Jake now. They had seen him break the chains. They had seen him defeat Kalira without using a weapon. Fear was growing among them, even if they didn't. Speak it out loud. Kalira was waiting when Jake arrived. She was not wearing her armor today. Instead, she wore a simple black uniform, the kind warriors used for sparring. Jake nodded at her but said nothing. "No guards today," Kalira said. Jake looked around and noticed they were alone. "Why? Because I don't want them to see what happens next." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You plan to kill me?" She shook her head. "No, I want to understand you. I want to fight without an audience." Jake stepped forward. "Then let's begin." But Kalira didn't move to attack. Instead, she walked to a bench and sat down. "Not with fists," she said. "Not this time. I want to understand your mind." Jake looked unsure, but after a moment he sat across from her. She studied him. "People, they were conquered? Yes?" Jake nodded. "Years ago, Earth was taken by force. Our leaders fell. Some humans were captured. Others went into hiding. And yet you are still strong." "Why?" Jake thought for a moment. "Because we remember. Because we know what it's like to lose everything. When you lose everything, fear becomes smaller, and hope becomes a weapon." Kalira. It was quiet for a while. "I was raised to believe your kind was weak, that you were soft, emotional, that your kind was only good as labor or entertainment." Jake looked at her. "Then why are you talking to me like this?" "Because what I saw in the arena wasn't weakness. It was something else. Something I don't understand. But he leaned back. Maybe that's because your empire doesn't want you to understand. She looked away, thinking. You said you want freedom. But what would you do with it? Where would you go? Jake didn't answer right away. Anywhere, nowhere? Doesn't matter. What matters is that we stop being slaves, that we stop being hunted. Kalira turned back to him. Do you want revenge? I want justice, he said. I want a world where one like me has to kneel again. She looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. Not anger, not cruelty, but something deeper, quiet strength. A fire that didn't burn wild, but steady. You surprised me, human, she said softly. Jake. My name is Jake. She nodded slowly. Jake. They sat in silence for a while. Later that evening, Kalira returned to her quarters. She looked at the reports. On her table. The High Command was watching her closely. They had noticed her interest in the human. Some of the officers had warned her not to get too close. Others had whispered about betrayal. But Kalira couldn't stop thinking about Jake. Not because he was strong, because he was calm, focused, and honest. He didn't hide behind lies or titles. The next day, she returned to the training floor again. Jake was already there. You knew I'd come, she said. Jake smiled a little. Yes. She walked over and handed him a small round object. This is a holoreader. It holds data about our history. I want you to read it. Jake looked at her. Why? Because I want you to understand us too. I want to know if everything I was taught is a lie. Jake took the device and nodded. Fair enough. From that day on, they met often. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in silence. Kalira started to see more than just a human in Jake. She saw someone who had lost much, but who still carried hope. She saw something. Else do something dangerous? She saw that if others followed Jake, they would no longer accept their chains, and that scared her more than anything, because she didn't know if she would stop them or join them. Jake walked slowly through. The halls of the training compound, the lights above flickered slightly, and the silence made every sound louder. He carried the holoreader Kalira had given him. He had spent nights reading it, learning about the Valkyrie Empire, its rise, and its long history of war and conquest. He learned how the Valkyrie believed in strength above all. They crushed weaker species. They ruled by fear. They also feared one thing: change. Jake now understood why Kalira looked at him the way she did. She was part of that system, but she was beginning to question it. He found her in the garden. Behind the compound? It was small and hidden, filled with strange glowing plants. Kalira stood near a tall red flower, staring into the distance. You read it? She asked, without turning around. All of it, Jake said. She turned to face him. And what do you think? Jake walked closer. Your people are strong, but they are also afraid. They fight to keep control because they know it can be lost. Kalira didn't argue. And humans? What do they fight for? For freedom, for the right to choose their own life. She looked at him carefully. I think you hate my people. Jake shook his head. I hate what they've done, but I don't hate you. Kalira said nothing. Her hand brushed the edge of the red flower. I was trained to see humans as animals, but you make me doubt. Jake watched her. Maybe doubt is the first step toward truth? Later that night, Kalira returned to her quarters. She found a message waiting. It was from Commander Varn, one of the highest officers in the Empire. You are being watched, the message said. Your contact with the human is not approved. Report to Central Command tomorrow. Kalira felt a chill. She knew what this meant. They didn't trust her anymore. The next morning, guards came to take her. They didn't let her speak to anyone. They placed her in a transport ship and flew her to the capital city of the Valkar world. Jake noticed her absence. He asked the guards, but they said nothing. He felt something was wrong. He began to plan. At the capital, Kalira stood in front of a large council. 10 Valkyrie leaders sat high above her. Their eyes were cold. You have shown disloyalty, one of them said. You formed a bond with a human slave. You shared restricted files. I sought understanding, Kalira said. Saw something in him that made me question our teachings. Another leader spoke. You have become weak. You forgot who we are. Kalira raised her head. No, I finally saw the truth. We are afraid of humans because they remind us of who we once were. Brave, unbroken. The council didn't respond. Guards came and placed her in chains, the same glowing chains she had once used. On Jake, they dragged her to a cell deep underground. She was alone. The stone walls were cold, and there was no light. Back at the compound, Jake was preparing. He knew Kalira was taken because of him. He felt responsible. He started speaking to other humans held in nearby camps. Quietly, he built trust. Some listened. Some were afraid. But a few were ready. Jake met with a young human named Kyle, who had once been an engineer. Kyle knew how to move through the Empire's systems. If we want to reach her, we need to act fast, Jake said. Before they silence her, Kyle nodded. We'll need weapons. And a way into the capital. I'll find both, Jake said. They began to gather old tools, small energy cells, and scraps of armor. Slowly, their plan took shape. Jake remembered what Kalira had told him about the side tunnels in the capital, about the forgotten paths only she knew. He used that knowledge to map their way. One night, under the cover of darkness, Jake and a small group of humans escaped the compound. They moved like shadows across the land. They avoided patrols and used the old tunnels to get close to the Capito. Meanwhile, Kalira sat in her cell. She had not eaten for days. Her body was weak, but her mind was strong. She kept thinking about Jake, about his quiet strength. She hoped he was safe. Then, one night, she heard something. A sound she never expected. A voice. Jake's voice. Kalira, are you alive? She stood up quickly. Jake, how? The wall behind her cracked open. Secret panel moved, and Jake stepped through with Kyle behind him. Kalira stared at him in disbelief. You came for me. Jake walked forward and broke her chains with a tool. Of course I did. You believed in me when no one else did. She fell forward, weak. He caught her, lifting her into his arms. Let's go, he said, and together they escaped. Into the night, as the first alarms began to sound. The night was loud with alarms. Red lights flashed across the Capitol towers as guards ran through the halls, searching for the escaped prisoner. The news spread. Fast Kalira was gone, and a group of humans was with her. Jake carried Kalira through the tunnels. Her arm was around his shoulder, and though she could walk a little, her steps were weak. Kyle led the way with a small light, checking every turn and door. We're almost clear, Kyle whispered. We just have to reach the lower gate. Jake nodded. He looked at Kalira. Hold on. Just a little more. Kalira tried to smile. I'm not made of glass, Jake. He smiled back. Good to know. Behind them, more humans followed. Some were fighters. Some were once scientists or workers. All of them had one thing in common. They believed in Jake. He had become their leader. Not through force, but through hope. As they reached the lower gate, they found it locked with a heavy control panel. Kyle rushed forward and began to work on it. How long? Jake asked. Maybe 2 minutes, Kyle said. Maybe 5. Depends how old the system is. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from behind. Jake turned to see a squad of Valkyrie guards moving fast through the tunnel. Get ready, Jake shouted. The humans grabbed whatever weapons they had, tools, stolen energy rods, metal bars. Jake stood at the front. The guards fired first. Blue shots lit up the tunnel. Jake ducked, then rushed forward. He moved with focus, dodging, shot and slamming into the first guard. He took the weapon from the soldier and passed it to a human behind him. A small battle started. Humans fought hard, using surprise and speed. Jake led them like a storm. He didn't fight with anger, he fought with purpose. Kalira, still weak, picked up a fallen energy blade. She stood beside Jake and defended him when a guard came close. Still, think I'm weak? Jake asked as they stood back to back. Never again, Kalira said. Finally, Kyle shouted, It's open. Move. The gate slid open, and the humans rushed through. Jake and Kalira were the last to leave. Kyle closed the gate behind them and locked it again. Outside, the night air was cool and fresh. They were in the lower levels of the capital, near the old tunnels that led to the forest. Kyle pointed forward that way. If we make it to the forest, they won't follow us. They ran. For hours, they moved through narrow paths, old ruins, and rocky ground. Kalira grew stronger with every step, and Jake stayed close. When they finally reached the trees, they stopped to rest. The group sat around a small camp, hidden under thick branches. A fire burned low. Jake sat with Kalira, wrapping a light cloth around her arm. "Why did you come for me?" she asked softly. "'Cause you mattered. You helped me understand your world. You gave me a chance to speak." Kalira looked down. "Now I'm a traitor, and my people will hunt me." "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe some of them will begin to think like you did." She was quiet for a long time. Then she looked at him. "What now?" Jake looked at the fire. "Now we find the others. There are more humans out there in camps, on ships, waiting for someone to give them hope. We'll build something new. A resistance." Alita nodded slowly. "Then I'll fight with you. Not as your enemy, as your ally." Word of the escape spread quickly across the Empire. Many Valkyrie were angry, others were afraid, but some started to whisper. They had seen the fight in the arena. They had heard stories of the human who broke the chains and the warrior who changed her heart in the forest. The humans began to build a hidden camp. It was small, but it was alive with new energy. Jake trained others in defense and movement. Kalira helped them understand the Empire's ways, teaching them how to stay hidden. Each day, more people joined. Some were humans who had escaped. Others were aliens who no longer believed in the Empire. One night, Jake stood on a high rock, looking at the stars. Kalira walked up beside him, thinking of Earth. Jake nodded. "Still out there. I don't know what's left of it, but I haven't forgotten." She looked at the sky too. "Maybe one day we'll see it again." Turned to her. "Maybe one day we'll see a galaxy where no one is in chains." She smiled. "Let's build it." And from that quiet place in the forest, a new hope began to grow on. That would soon shake the Empire to its core. The forest camp grew with each passing day. More humans escaped their prisons and joined the group. Some came from nearby camps. Others traveled for days. Word had spread about a human who broke the chains and the Valkyrie warrior who stood with him. Jake worked every day. To prepare the camp, he trained fighters, planned supply runs, and helped those who were still afraid. Kalira stayed by his side, teaching them how to hide from patrols and use the land to their advantage. One night, Jake stood near the edge of the camp, watching the moonlight fall through the trees. Kalira walked up to him. "There are more coming tomorrow," she said. "At least 15, maybe 20. Jake nodded. "We'll make room." Kalira looked at him. "Do you ever get tired?" He gave a small smile. "Every day, but I can't stop now." She nodded. "Neither can I." Suddenly, a young boy ran toward them. His name was Ben, one of the newest arrivals. "Jake, Kalira, a ship above the trees. It's looking for something." Jake and Kalira followed him. The sky, a dark ship, floated above the forest. Scanned the trees below. "You're searching for us," Kalira said. Jake frowned. "We need to move. Get deeper into the forest." They returned to the camp and gave the order. Everyone packed quickly. They used small paths and moved quietly. Within an hour, they reached a hidden valley surrounded by high rocks and thick trees. They set up camp again. Guards were placed at the edges. Fires were kept small. Kalira worked late, checking the scanners for signals. Jake joined her. "Are they close?" She shook her head. "Not now. But they will come back." Jake looked around. "We need a message. Something strong. Something that tells the Empire we are not afraid." Kalira raised an eyebrow. "You want to strike?" "Yes," Jake said. "We hit one of their outposts. Free the prisoners. Show them we can fight." Kalira thought for a moment. "There's an old outpost near the edge of the valley. Small, but important. Mostly for storage and prisoners. If we take it, We make a statement. Jake nodded. Then, that's our next step. For the next 3 days, they prepared. Kyle studied the layout of the outpost. Kalira trained a team of fighters. Jake made the plan simple. Go in fast. Free the people. Leave before backup arrives. On the 4th night, they moved. Jake, Kalira, Kyle, and 12 others traveled through the dark forest. When they reached the outpost, they stopped and waited for the signal, Kalira whispered. There are 2 guards at the front, 3 more near the back, cameras on both sides. Jake nodded. Kyle shut the cameras. We move on, my word. Kyle tapped a small device. The lights on the cameras went dark. Jake raised his hand, then dropped it. They moved like shadows. Jake and Kalira reached the front guards and took them down quietly. The others slipped around the back. Within minutes, they had entered the building. Inside, the hall was quiet. Prison cells lined the walls. Humans and other species sat in silence, weak and tired. When they saw Jake, some stood. Some cried. We're here to free you, Jake said. He broke the locks and helped them out. Kalira gave food packs to those who could barely walk. An alarm started. Move! Jake shouted. They guided the freed prisoners. Out the back, Kyle placed small charges on the outpost walls. As they escaped into the trees, the outpost exploded behind them. The fire lit the sky. It could be seen from miles away. Back at the valley camp, the people watched the glow in the distance. Some were afraid. But when Jake returned with the freed prisoners, cheers broke out. He stood on a large rock and raised his voice. Today we showed the Empire we are not broken. Today we brought back those they tried to forget. We are not slaves, or not weak. We are rising, the crowd cheered. For the first time, they felt like they had power. Kalira watched Jake with quiet pride. She had once mocked humans. Now she stood with them. Now she believed in them. Later, as the camp settled down, Kalira sat with Jake. That outpost, they won't forget it. It's the point, Jake said. She looked at him. You become more than just a fighter. You've become a symbol. Jake looked at the fire. Symbols are only useful if they lead to something real. We're not free yet. Kalira nodded. And let's keep fighting until the last chain is broken. They sat together in the light of the fire, ready for whatever came next.